to hopefully let you know who I am, to give you an idea what kind of a person I am. And I would also pose a question for you all to consider, because it's been a struggle within myself in my role in AI or in other positions, as well as we kind of facing the rather severe struggle and changing of world orders in these days. So first of all, I think you know me as a former legislator. Yes, I was a legislator since 2004. That's a long time ago. I'm 68 now. And it was a span of 16 years. I lost one term, so I was a legislator for 12 years altogether in Hong Kong between 2004 and 2020. I participated in politics not because I wanted to be a politician, actually. I studied in social work. I studied in Hong Kong. I was a volunteer and became interested in the profession. I wanted to engage in a helping profession, so I studied it. I became a social worker. Then I furthered my study in the United States. Finished my PhD in UC Berkeley. Then I worked in California. I studied there and I worked there for about 8 years full time. And I went back to Hong Kong, wanting to continue my work in the social work profession. So I taught in university there. I became interested in politics because the situation in Hong Kong was changing in the social welfare sector, and I came from a system that is akin to the system that they want to become. I was an executive director of a nonprofit organization for 8 years in California, in Oakland, California, serving primarily the Chinese American population, the Chinese American and Asian American population. And the Hong Kong welfare system was a very reliable, consistent, and I would say very established sector. But they were wanting to change to a system that would become very unreliable and unstable. So I didn't really want to see that happen. And I think that would change a lot of the quality of services. But at that time, you have to understand the Hong Kong Legislative Council, which is like the parliament, is divided into two sections. One is called functional constituency. It is the seats for certain professions and trades. So the constituency in these seats, or that people can vote for the seats in that section, is rather limited. However, they do have one seat assigned for social workers, and that person is very vital in deciding the future of social work profession, the future development of the profession in Hong Kong. And that person happened to be a very pro-establishment, very basically obeying what the government wanted to do. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to see that happen. So I participated in the election for that seat, and I won. So that's how I became a politician. I didn't set out to be the politician, and I didn't want to become a politician, frankly. But however, I entered politics like that, and I was hoping to instill some reforms or stopping something bad from happening in my profession. However, when I became a legislator, I knew that that position would also allow me to extend my influence and my ideas to help the vulnerables. And that's primarily that became my main role. And so while I was a legislator, later on I became a directly elected legislator between 2016, 2012 and 2020. Because I didn't want to continue to be elected only by a small number of people. I wanted to be a person who is answerable to the public. That is the other half of the Legislative Council. So in Hong Kong, the democracy is basically a half democracy, if you will. Half of the legislator are returned by popular vote, but the other half are really elected by a small number of people. And in these seats, the mainland China, the central government has a very tight control of it, except for a few professions which they always lose, like the seat in assigned for social work. But anyways, I just wanted to explain to you why I entered into politics. And I also became very active in not only helping the vulnerable population, but particularly for people with disabilities. Because I have a daughter who is quite severely disabled. She is intellectually or developmentally disabled. In fact, we are still taking care of her now. She is 33, and she needs basically total care, feeding, bathing, dressing, and everything. So I know in close contact what it is like to be taking care of a person with disabilities. And I understand what we as a family with a member with disabilities would have to go through in negotiating and getting sufficient support and protecting ourselves in the society. So I devoted a lot of my attention to shaping policies related to person with disabilities. Also from the values of social work, I basically wanted to pursue social justice and human rights in my position as a legislator. So those are the main focus, and those are my work during my time in the parliament. Now, I wrote various bills, legislations related to special education, child welfare, legislation about extending protection and expanding the scope of the protection for situations involving domestic violence. I basically, or people with rare diseases, and I sought funding for them to establish a pool of money to fund the specialized drugs or medications for people with rare diseases and so forth. So my main focus has been serving the marginal groups, people in poverty, single parents, new immigrants, and even refugees. Refugees is the most unpopular population, if you will. They don't have any power to vote. They're very discriminated against by our government. And I think in general, the public has a negative perception of refugee population in Hong Kong as well. But anyways, I was trained as a social worker, and I look at my position as uh, a powerful position to allow people to hear from the voiceless, to listen and to know people who are in the marginal positions and how they are living and how what type of sufferings they have to go through. So I used the legislature as an amplifier, a platform for their voices to be heard. And I see myself as that person. So I never really engaged a whole lot in um, the fight for changing the political system. But as a member of the pro-democracy movement and also someone in the legislature, of course I participated in all these movements as well. But I look at it from an angle of a social work profession. I wanted to help and I wanted to um, achieve justice, a protection of human rights. That's all I see my role being essential in that process. In 2014, I suppose some of you would have heard that there was an umbrella movement that happened in Hong Kong. It was spearheaded by students, uh, young people. Um, it's a very powerful movement in that it involves a lot of people. Over 1 million people uh, participated in some form of the movement. And during the major part of the movement was an occupation of a very central place in Hong Kong, um, around the government headquarters. And the occupation lasted 72 days. So it's a very major and historic event. Now, in addition to being a supportive person or force in that movement, there are a couple of things that I've done during that movement. One was the movement was very peaceful, right? Hong Kong was famous for people participating in protests. But for example, July 1st, which is the sort of the date of the return of sovereignty for Hong Kong being a colony, British colony, and returning to become part of China. But because of the grievances and the incompetence of the special administrative region, we call the new government, there's a lot of anger and a lot of uh, dissident voices. And July 1st is one day that people gather together to voice their opposition to the government. So on July 1st, there's always this big march, and tens of thousands of people would take to the street. But it's extremely peaceful. People bring along their family members, young people, old people, people in wheelchairs, and then I organize people in wheelchairs to participate in it as well, to express our need. So it's sort of like almost a carnival. People come together expressing their different needs and different ideas about how they want to see our society become. Um, so the umbrella movement was pretty much like that. So it was a very peaceful movement, but of course it was encountered by a lot of police brutality. But at that time, it was still manageable, if you will. But at one moment, some of the protesters decided to storm into the legislative council complex, which is, the building of the legislature. The occupation area actually included the legislative council complex as well as the government headquarters, and they wanted to storm into the legislative council. I found out they wanted to do that, and I tried to stop them. I was actually the only person at the scene trying to stop them. They were using this iron barricade to storm into the glass door of the Legislative Council building, and I stood in front of it, and I wanted to stop them. I couldn't really do it, but the police came, and in the end they stopped everything. The other incident was Claudia Mo, who just released, who was part of the 47 Democrats jailed for about 4 years because of the national security law. She and I heard that in one occupation area, there was a lot of violence and police brutality, and it happened the previous night, and hundreds of people suffered rather severe casualties, some rather serious. So we went to the scene, and we put ourselves between the police and the protesters. We stayed there for the entire night, and it was miraculously that it was successful, that nothing happened in the whole night, because at that particular night, because of the violence that happened the night before, there were thousands of protesters prepared for a fight, and the police were prepared too, and we wanted to stop it, so we put ourselves in between those the two groups, and it was successful. So these were my position, if you will. I think my intention was to seek peace and to stop or de-escalate, to mediate, to scale down or prevent violence if possible. Now, come 2019, the movement was much more engaged, violent, and it was very difficult. And there were many instances that I also tried to play that role. I remember, yes, they tried to storm into the Legislative Council building again. And this time around, it was not only myself. We had several, or maybe 7 to 8 legislators, pro-democracy legislators, trying to stop them, but it was to no avail. The crowd was too big, and they just tuck us away. They were not violent to us, but they didn't want to hurt us. But they basically got us, all of us out of the picture. They didn't want us to be there physically, so we couldn't get back. I tried several times trying to stop them in front of the glass doors, but it was not useful. It was to no avail. I cried. I told them not to, because if they were charged with rioting, the most severe punishment could be 10 years in prison. They told me, yeah, don't. This is not their consideration. They wanted to show the world that they wanted to see, to tell the world that they're in despair. They had no choice. They wanted to do it. In several incidents, I tried to stop violence. Right, at the airport, there was a lynching activity. They identified someone who was perhaps sent from the central government, and they began kicking him around, punching him, and all that. I and another legislator, KK Kwok, Dr. Kwok, happened to be at the scene. We knew something was going to happen that day, so we went, particularly went to the airport, and we saw that happen, and we physically tried to stop them. And we did, I think, with some help of the other protesters. So we were finally able to save this guy. And in the police headquarters, it was surrounded by tens of thousands of protesters. We tried to ask the protesters to keep calm. And when the police people in the headquarters building asked for someone to, they couldn't leave. They were totally surrounded. And someone, they said, was sick inside the building, and the ambulance came. And Dr. Kwok and I, again, were at the scene, and we escorted the people from inside to the ambulance and let them, go to the hospital. And the crowd wasn't happy. But that's, my role, if you will. I try to protect not only the protesters, but in many instances, the police, the people who I don't identify with. The brutality from the police actually was the main discontent at the towards the second part, or at the end of towards the end of the movement, the 2019 movement. It was the police brutality that was sustaining that anger and that opposition force of the whole movement. So I wanted to tell you this because it is becoming more and more difficult to keep or sustain this position, especially during the movement, of course. We were seen as outdated. We were seen as an obstacle of the movement. We were not particularly perceived as someone who is fighting for freedom and democracy. We were seen as part of the establishment. So perhaps this is a point that I want to show you the film. It happened that one Australian reporter who accompanied me during the movement, and he recorded this part of the, he followed me for half a day and looked at what happened and what I would do during the protest. So I want to show you that film, and actually I have the question in my mind is, how can someone continue to keep violence away when such brutality is happening to people, especially our young people, who want to strive for democracy and freedom. So if you can take a few minutes to review the film.
I'm going to try to give some advice.
Do you think people here want to hear advice?
No, I just have to give them some reminders.
What did you say?
I told them to stay safe, and be water. No need to be too gung-ho about resisting in some place and end up getting hurt.
When they say be water, what does that mean?
Be flexible, move around, not station in one place to get caught.
Where's it from, be water?
From Bruce Lee, type of kung fu that he invented.
Are you expecting violence today, despite your advice?
I think so. Despite my advice, there will be violence. As soon as they see the police all geared up, they forget everything. So I hope that this serves as a good reminder for them, although I don't know how effective it could be.
Yeah, but you're sounding like a parent.
Yeah, I do, but I think judging from my age and my image, I don't think they mind that too much.
Okay. What do you think of him? What does he mean to the movement?
People, they go for peaceful movement, and some people, they are going for some bravery movement. He is an icon about the peaceful part, and a lot of brave kids, they don't like him. But I think, yeah.
Do you think there's going to be violence today? There's kids with, helmets and stuff.
Like me.
Yeah.
We are just protecting ourselves, As long as the police is calm enough, they are the trigger point of the violence.
So these are all members of the legislative committee, legislative council, excuse me.
There's a couple of us.
Do you think the youth are listening to them?
No, the youth don't necessarily listen to the legislators.
Yeah.
But we are here to at least witness what's going on, be the bridge between the police and the protesters sometime.
Yeah.
Make sure that there's sufficient time for the protesters to respond.
Yeah.
Make sure that the police don't jump onto their violent conclusions so fast.
So what did you try to do? What were you saying?
I was telling them to slow down. This is not to arrest. They should disperse the crowd. Don't hit the protesters. And they said they're doing their job.
Did they say anything back to you?
Well, they yelled back at me, told me to leave the scene.
Do they recognize you? Do they know who you are?
Of course they know. They call me by name.
What's he saying now?
He's saying I'm in a legal assembly.
In an illegal assembly?
Yes. 知道，我哋同大家溝通嘅啫。
Shining a light right to block the camera, I think, yeah?
Yeah.
He doesn't want us to have this
No,
conversation.
they don't want any communication. They simply want to storm out and make the rest again. That's what I think they want to do.
Have they changed the way
Yes,
they talk, the way they operate?
yes.
They've changed,
They
haven't they?
used to allow the crowd to leave, but now they are there to make arrest. And once the protesters are arrested, like what happened last week, those 40-some people were charged with rioting. And it was a very severe charge. It could be 10 years imprisonment. So this is why we are here. We really don't want the young to suffer. This is a really severe punishment.
We're on Nathan Road in Kowloon. What they're going to probably be doing is advancing down Nathan Road to a huge number of protesters who are down there. Once they get within range, we know they're going to start firing tear gas because they put on gas masks, and they're going to start raising the beware of tear gas flag. That's a courtesy the police use to warn the protesters and try to give them time to leave. But right now the police seem particularly angry. So we're going to put on our gas masks too.
Perhaps a few bricks were thrown at the police. That's why they just fired tear gas canister.
We're on the Kowloon side of this island city, and tonight we saw what was probably thousands, maybe even tens of thousands of marchers protesting not just against this extradition bill that has all but been shelved, but also against police brutality. But the police, they were nowhere to be seen until just now, until just a few hours ago, when they squeezed protesters on both sides of Nathan Road, which is the main thoroughfare here in Kowloon. Now, there was a little bit of tear gas. Some of the police charged and beat up and arrested some of the protesters. But relatively speaking, compared to the last 9 weekends of straight protests that have really gridlocked this city for so long, this night ended relatively peacefully. What'd you say to those kids?
No, I said, no, this is the end of tonight's game. This is it.
They seem to accept that.
Yeah. I told them not to be arrested because this is too much of a price to pay.
But they were willing to listen to you. They didn't protest.
No, yeah, I think they understand. They know where we're coming from. We're not here to undermine them or betray them. We are here to protect them. I think anybody can see that.
Thank you, Fer.
Thank you.
Yeah, so thanks a lot for your sharing and presentation. We now move on to next part of the webinar. So we are now entering into the Q&A session. So anyone is, please feel free, maybe like here or like online, let us know if you have any questions for Fer. Maybe I can ask like our AiTEN members first, whether you have any questions that you're really keen on asking. For Marianne.
I want to know what Amnesty Hong Kong overseas, what can they actually do? What kind of activities they can take part in?
Can you hear it, Fer? So what Marianne asked about is, what do you think Amnesty Hong Kong overseas can do? What actually would be things that you think would be effective and useful?
Well, I think first, Amnesty International Hong Kong Overseas is a new form of AI chapters, if you will, in that we don't have a base in Hong Kong, and yet our primary focus should be in Hong Kong. Now, that of course makes it very hard to operate, because when you are not on the ground, you don't necessarily have the information about what's happening. And even if you do, what can you do to assist or revert the situation in Hong Kong, or assist particular individuals who are suffering from human rights violations, right? So in many ways, Hong Kong, the AiHKO is to coordinate and perhaps create a sense of solidarity for the diaspora of Hong Kong overseas. At this time, there is a sizable community for Hong Kong diaspora in the UK, in Canada, some in Australia, of course, some in Japan, Taiwan, and the United States. And we've identified these countries or regions being or having a more sizable Hong Kong diaspora community. And we wanted to hopefully make connections with all these, between these communities, and having us to focus on what we can do from overseas to help people within Hong Kong, people who are in jail, people who are human rights defenders who might be in some sort of persecutions, and also perhaps some other continued violation of human rights towards other marginal groups such as the LGBT community and people with disabilities and so forth. So if you say, what we can do, we have to continue to explore how we can extend our help to people in Hong Kong on the ground, also perhaps to affect government from overseas countries of the various places that I've mentioned, that perhaps they can exert certain political pressure to the Hong Kong government and China, to make sure that they do not continue to violate human rights. So that's the direction that we're working on. But first, we have to build a base. And so after the launching, we will have to at least solidify our support from these various diaspora communities before we can really affect the actual changes in Hong Kong on the ground. And also on the side, the Hong Kong diaspora community are also experiencing certain human rights concerns in their own places, right? They might even suffer from transnational repression. So if that should happen, we should work with local groups as well to make sure that the Hong Kong diaspora communities continue to be able to free from these transnational repression. So that's the other side of our work, if you will. In addition to focusing on the people or the human rights situation in Hong Kong, we would also be concerned about the human rights situations of the Hong Kong diaspora communities. So those are the two main work areas for AiHKO. What we have done so far is we've put out some survey. We've conducted some discussion groups, asking people what they want to see AiHKO to focus on. Instances that happen, such as the additional charges to Joshua Wong, the calling for release of Jimmy Lai, the founder of Apple Daily, the release of Zhou Hengtong, the chair of the Alliance for Support of Democracy in China, and other members of the pro-democracy legislators as well. So these are perhaps the statements and the public positions that we have expressed, of course. And then we will continue to work with the people on the ground, but it is a very sensitive issue. So we will have to assess how much of the work that we can do in there in terms of working through the people on the ground to affect policy changes. So these are the things that we're looking at this time.
Thank you for I see one participant, Edward, was my former classmate. So so if you want to ask a question, please do.
Okay. All right. Hi.
Hi, Edward.
Hello.
Hi, Mr. Cheung. I'm just curious. I'm in the UK, and I've noticed more people from Hong Kong, and also it's been on the news a while ago about people choosing to emigrate here during all of these troubles. Is there something you think Amnesty or other groups can do to highlight the angst and the frustration that many people in Hong Kong are experiencing, like on a broader scale? Because I feel like it's highlighted every once in a while on the news media here, but it's not consistent. So I don't think it's on the radar of a lot of people here.
Yes, right. Definitely. I think AI in the UK has a role in the protection of various communities, right? And Hong Kong diaspora, being a diaspora community, it certainly needs to be assisted with any types of human rights violations. Many of them have to go through re-establishing themselves, making a living, perhaps working in conditions that may not be ideal, or at times even perhaps deprived of basic protections. Also, as I mentioned earlier, the transnational repression happens in the UK. Of course, there are various groups that are already working in these areas. And there's also a movement at this time to call the super embassy to be canceled, right, from China. And I think it depends on the coordination between AI UK and the various other groups that are working with the Hong Kong diaspora communities there. Perhaps there's the connections or the type of ways that the local or the Hong Kong diaspora community groups can be assisted by AI UK in how they can make connections with the policymakers, parliamentarians, and other local groups in collaboration, so that they can achieve a better protection of their human rights. So, I think AI UK can lend your expertise and your connections there. And also depends on how things evolves. Perhaps there would be a role for collaborative efforts to be done. Education on human rights, right? It could be extended to the Hong Kong diaspora community. So, I think there's a lot of ways that you guys can collaborate. And it would be great if AI UK, I understand that AI UK is already working with some of the groups there, and also you've been paying attention to the situation in China as well, and in Hong Kong. So I think in many ways, I understand that AIHKO is working with AIUK on a lot of these issues at this time.
Any more questions from outside or from any participants, online participants? Yes.
Does he experience any transnational regression, like repression himself from?
Do you experience any transnational repression yourself?
Well, they put bounty on 19 people's heads, and we don't know when they're going to do that to other people, including myself. As a threat, it's a threat because people have family members in Hong Kong, and I certainly do. I have my 93-year-old father in Hong Kong, and I dread that one day that he would be taken by the police because of me, because of my work. They harass your family members. They didn't interrogate them, and I don't want that to happen to my 93-year-old father, right? So that threat is always there. They are doing it. They're not doing it to me at this time, but who knows when. So it's not a good feeling. I escaped from Hong Kong. I flee from Hong Kong, honestly, because I didn't want to be arrested abruptly without any notice or any understanding, any inkling, right? It happens, and I did it. They did it to me before. I was put in jail for a very short time, 3 weeks, and I understand what imprisonment means. And I have a daughter to take care of. I have my wife to take care of. I cannot imagine, myself being locked up for years and just, leaving them out there. So I escaped, and I escaped because I didn't want to be taken away abruptly. Now, that fear is gone, that particular fear is gone, but the fear of my family members or even myself physically being harassed here in Canada is not gone. And it is unfortunate that the power, the influence of the Chinese Communist Party is everywhere. And I'm sure you understand that they established their informal police stations here in Canada, in Toronto. There are at least 2. When I go out to the street, I was shouted at by people who are pro-China, right? Even in Canada, it happened a couple of times. So it's not so much that it happened and in a severe manner, but it's a threat. It's the feeling, the threat that is always there. So there's really no freedom unless that regime, that repression is completely gone. And of course, physical violence did happen to some of the people in UK. Thin Lao was attacked quite severely. Thin Lao being one of the more outspoken protesters who fled to the UK earlier. So if they don't do it physically, they can sanction you. They put a bounty on your head, and they harass you. And the Anna Kwok, who has a bounty on her head, her father was arrested for handling her life insurance, and he was detained without bail for I think maybe several weeks until the case reached the High Court, and the High Court allowed bail. But he's still being charged, and he could be sent to jail. The father. Okay, so yeah, it's always there.
So we have like about 5 more minutes. I think we will have time for 1 or 2 more questions. See whether anybody else here. Okay, yeah, Francis.
I have a question about police boxes or police stations that you're talking about. How is it that they are allowed to, how did they ever come to be? Because they are all around the world now. I don't understand how that has occurred. Might be a naive question, but I don't understand why the governments of the country are allowing them to be in the country.
It's a good question.
Yes. First, they deny these being a formal establishment, right? They deny that these are their police stations. They admit that these are the outposts that are there to provide assistance to their own people. Now, the view of the Chinese Communist Party is that people who are, although they are living overseas, but if they're ethnically Chinese, and they're born in China, or they had a citizenship in China, I think that include Hong Kong, of course, they would perceive them as Chinese nationals. And if they said these outposts are there to assist people with providing information such as traveling back to China, or relating messages to their members, the family members in China. Trading or other questions that people may have there, in the Chinese Canadian communities. So that's what they were trying to explain away, how these police stations came into being. Now, of course, when they say that these are police stations, they're actually agents from China working there. But if they deny it, and if the local governments are not able to gather sufficient evidence of these Chinese, or even if they know that these are Chinese agents, I mean, what can they do? There is no law against it. So they are very good at using your system to the max to sustain or even maximize their influence, their power, their grip. They want to have a good control of the Chinese national communities overseas. There's a lot of ways that they do it. they control their traveling, they control their money flow in terms of how much money they can take or take back to China, or get money, mostly getting money away from China. They control who can travel, and therefore they, you have family members back home. You better be cautious, right? You better be obedient and loyal to them. Otherwise, something may happen to your family members. So these are the things that they do to maximize their control.
I guess I still don't understand why they're not located in an embassy. Like if they are offering a service for people, why aren't the countries saying they must be located in the embassy instead of around in the communities? It just seems I don't know, ridiculous that they're not within the boundaries of the embassy. Of course, they could still do the same things, but if they're in the community, it's easier to see what people are doing, I guess.
Exactly. I think that's one way of concealing their reach, right? In their work. And also, that's the way the Communist Party works. They reach to the very grass level of the communities. They have the formal establishments, the institutions, but they also have their reach to the very grassroots level. In China, they have these committees for each street, and they know what happens within each household. So that's how they can keep their grips so tight. Anything you do that might violate the interest of the party would be caught rather quickly.
Thank you very much again, for spending your time with us and sharing your experiences and also your observations with us. It's been a very fruitful and very meaningful hour of discussion. And then also thanks a lot for all the participants for taking part in this webinar. It's the first time AiTEN been doing this webinar. We have recorded it, and we will put it on our Facebook. And then also thanks a lot for Lady Liberty Hong Kong's all the logistical and technological support. Thank you very much. So yeah, we need young people, as what you have mentioned. So we now have quite a lot of young people around us. So we also feel the hope, and although like we keep on fighting, so thanks a lot first. Thanks a lot for your and other Amnesty Hong Kong overseas board members' efforts, and we hope that there would be future cooperation with AiTEN, and then also of course with Amnesty Japan. Thank you very much for your time.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye bye. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye.